Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all this morning. Welcome to Fellowship Bible Church. So if you haven't been here before, or if you're a visitor, like was said in announcements, let me just tell you this morning, we're going to do things a little bit differently. So August is the beginning of our church year. That's when our church year starts. So every August, we like to have what we call the State of the Church. This may be new to you. You may have not heard of this before. Probably you have not heard of this before. But what we like to do during this time is we like to spend some time looking back at the past year, the things that God has done in our church and through his people, and look ahead to the next year. This year coming forward, this year ahead of us. And the reason that we want to do that is because we believe this is part of what it means to be a good steward of the thing that God has blessed us with, right? Where have we been and where are we going? Now, that being said, don't think we're not going to spend time in the scriptures. We are going to spend time in the scriptures this morning. We're going to take a minute to get there. We've got some other stuff to talk about real quickly first, but just so you know, we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 58. So if you have your Bibles, you can open up there to Isaiah chapter 58. And as you're turning there, let me talk to you about some of the things that I think we have reason to celebrate this last year. The one that has been the most surprising to me, the one that I have been the most grateful, has been our giving. This past year, this is a big deal, because this past year was the first year since I've been your pastor that we have exceeded what we spent on our budget. That we, and not just by a little, but by a whole bunch, right? That is a big deal. And here's the best part of that. That wasn't because of some giving campaign, some fundraising campaign. That was just God moving in the hearts of his people and you guys responding, right? So if you've given this year and if you've given faithfully this year, I just want to say good job, way to go, hang in there. See, because there's something that happens when we're obedient to the Lord like that. Something happens inside of us. All of a sudden, our faith becomes our own. Something inside of us shifts. But I want to tell you something else. Something happens in a church when a church lives like that as well. When a church is faithful what God has given to them. And that's what we want to do. So what we've been doing over the past, year probably, every month we've been putting the giving numbers in the bulletin, letting you know where we're at, what are we doing. And part of the reason for that was because we want everybody to experience this joy. But here's the thing. We don't want you to just experience it from the outside where you're just seeing numbers in a bulletin and moving on. We want you to experience it on the inside where you're trusting the Lord, where you're seeing this is the place that God has planted you, so you're pouring yourself and all that you have into this place. Now, in a minute, when we get to the passage, we're going to talk more about the reason our giving is so important. In a minute, we'll get there. So, what are we going to do with the surplus? This is the question on everybody's mind, I'm sure. We've never been in this position before. Let me tell you this morning, this is something that we are taking very seriously and very prayerfully, and I can say that honestly standing before you this morning. We're praying for wisdom about what to do with that. We are praying wisdom for our elders who ultimately have been given that decision to decide what would be best to do with this money. But let me tell you something that I know and something you know if you're a student of Scripture is that God blesses his people so that they can be a blessing to others, right? So that means we're going to take what God has given us and we're going to hold it loosely. We're going to hold it with open hands. So that means some of that money that God has blessed us with is going to go right back here to strengthen, grow, increase areas of ministry, update areas of ministry that need it. But some of it is also going to go out to other ministries and people and things that we've been supporting, maybe just at a little bit higher level. So that's the plan. We're going to keep doing what it is that we've been doing, just maybe increase it a little bit more. There'll be more to come on that. So that's the first piece, right? But that's just one piece of the things that we had to celebrate this last year. I also want to talk about children's ministry. As I look around this room, I know many of you know what I'm about to say is that our children's ministry has grown in the best and most complicated way because we have more kids than we've ever had. We've had to get creative about ways to teach them and separate the kids and things like that. Now, if you're going to have a problem, that's a good one to have. And I choose, that's definitely one I want to have. But we're having to be creative about, okay, maybe we need to move to another classroom to expand, to make a room for this group and that group. So that has been really good. And as I look around this room, like I said, I know a lot of you are helping out in the children's ministry. And if you're helping out in the children's ministry, I hope that you've been able to pick up on the fact that through Emily and what it is she's doing back there, our kids are not an afterthought. Our kids are not an afterthought. We recognize them as some of the resources that God has handed us to do our best with. And so every week, lessons are given to help our kids make sure that they understand who Jesus is, get an opportunity to hear the gospel, and then get an opportunity to respond to the gospel. I hope you parents feel that. I hope you grandparents feel that, because that's what's going on in our children's ministry. On top of that, a couple more things to celebrate. On top of that, volunteers. I know we are a church that is thick and ripe and has plenty of volunteers, and God bless you all, and a lot of you have been doing it for a long time. Believe it or not, this church, what you're looking at, it takes a lot to do. Not only this room. Children's ministry has to be set up, multiple rooms, the foyer, coffee, the greeting center, bathrooms have to be clean, tech, security, tear down. It all requires volunteers. And we have a team of dedicated volunteers who work together seamlessly to make this place as comfortable as it is each and every week for each and every one of us. Not only that, this past year I've been so happy and so pleasantly surprised. I've had people come to me and say, I would like to do this. They didn't wait for me to ask them. Not only would I like to, or I see a hole, I see a problem, I see a potential problem down the road. What if I was to do that? That is one of the best things. It takes something off of my shoulders, and I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. Maybe we can make this happen. Thank you so much. As someone taking responsibility of the place where God has placed them, seeing a need and filling a need. So another victory, we're getting near the end, another victory this year, and I hope you guys feel this like I do, has been our worship time. Now, you might know this because many Sundays I get up here and I'm like overwhelmed with this sense of how great worship was because I heard you guys singing over the top of my head. That was the case this morning. But I want to tell you the reason I'm so excited, that hasn't always been the case. There were years here where worship felt kind of like thin. It just felt like it wasn't as energetic. Now, it wasn't necessarily because the music was bad. It was just because, for whatever reason, people weren't comfortable singing. I'm hoping we're getting to the point where the opposite is now true. That the person who comes and does not sing feels uncomfortable themselves. Not out of shame, not out of guilt, but just out of a desire like, man, I want what these guys have. I want to worship the Lord. I want to love the Lord so much that I want to sing to the Lord. I think that's where we're getting. And I'm also grateful that this last year we were able to stop Caleb from walking out the door. He was on his way to an internship somewhere else. And thank God, God spoke to him, changed his heart. We said, hey, would you mind staying? He said, I would love to stay. And here he is. And I know many of you appreciate the song choices, his presence, the way that he leads us in worship. It has been great. On top of that, this is the last one, I promise. There's so much to celebrate. There hasn't always been, so we need to just take time to celebrate it. This year, and I didn't realize this until I started doing all this thinking and going back stuff. This year is 10 years for Fellowship Bible Church South Campus. We have been here for 10 years. That is huge. Because I don't know if you know anything about South Jackson and Bemis, but this is kind of where things come to die a lot of times. If you drive down the 45, you see all those empty businesses and in downtown, right? And yet, not only has God sustained us here in this place, there's been some lean years, there's been some rough years, but he has prospered us. Our leaves have remained green. We have fruit to give to others in this community. And this year has just been one of our greatest years as a church yet. So I'm so encouraged, and I hope that you guys are too. Okay. So all that being said, those three things that I named, giving, serving others, and worship, those three things, we find all three of those things in the passage we're going to look at this morning. Isaiah chapter 58. So hopefully you're already there. Before we jump in, this is going to need just a few sentences, a few lines of context here. So what's going on is Isaiah, first of all, was written about 700 years before Jesus. What's going on in the history of Israel at this time is that God's people are just kind of going through the motions when it comes to worship. They're just kind of checking a box, right? They show up, They're there like they're supposed to. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They're fasting, but then they go home and they act like their old selves. And so God sends a very tough word through the prophet Isaiah to his people. And basically, I'll say essentially what God said. He doesn't say these words, but basically what God says is, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with what you guys are doing. You guys worship me. You come and you check the box, you go through the motions, but really your hearts are unchanged. It's not going any further than outwardly. He says, you guys come and you fast. You fast like I've asked you to do, but then you go home and you beat your workers. You come home and you bow your head in reverent worship, and then you go home and you pick a fight with your neighbors. He said, the problem is your worship isn't what it's supposed to be. So now with that context, hopefully, chapter 58, we're going to look at these first 5 verses. They will make a little bit more sense to you. This is God speaking to his prophet Isaiah to tell them what to say, and then God is going to talk to Isaiah about his people in kind of an ironic way in these first verses. So listen to what he says to Isaiah. Verse 1, cry aloud, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their transgression, to the house of Jacob their sins. Here's the ironic part. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways, as if they were a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the judgment of their God. They ask of me righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God. And this is what they say in verse 3. Why have we fasted? Why have we fasted and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves and you take no knowledge of it? God's answer, behold, in the day of your fast, you seek your own pleasure and oppress all your workers. Behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to hit with a wicked fist. Fasting like yours this day will not make your voice to be heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day for a person to humble himself? Is it to bow down his head like a reed and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast and a day acceptable to the Lord? Let's stop right there. So the people make it very clear what's going on in their hearts in verse 3. They say, Lord, we're doing what you've told us to do, and it seems to us like you don't even see the things that we're doing. Right? They're basically frustrated with God. Not only are they frustrated with God, they bring an accusation against God. They say, you don't see. It's basically, hey, Lord, the problem isn't us, the problem's you. Can you imagine the audacity of that? That's essentially what they're saying. We're fasting, and you just don't seem to notice, God. What's wrong with you? And God says, hey, you're fasting, it's only external. Your worship, right? Forget the word fasting. Your worship, it's only external. It only goes skin deep. You're only going through the motions. While internally, they were continuing to pursue their own interests. Now, I want to hold this up as a mirror this morning for all of us, myself included. Not as an accusation, but as a mirror. See, there's a version of church attendance that looks a lot like Israel's fasting. You show up, you go through the motions, but you leave completely unchanged. And God says, that's not what I'm after. I'm after something much more. That's not what I'm after. What is God after? Well, thankfully, he tells us and his people very, very clearly in verse 6 what it is that he's after. Look with me at verse 6. He says, is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of wickedness? To undo the straps of the yoke? To let the oppressed go free? And to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover him and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? See, now God is talking specifically to the nation of Israel about some specific things. I don't want to miss this. He's talking about taking care of the poor and the oppressed. He's talking about caring for those who are crushed by circumstances of life that are outside of their control. So he's talking very specifically, but there's some principles here. There are some principles here that certainly apply to us as well. This is the principle. Genuine worship always moves outward. Genuine worship always moves outward. That's not to say it doesn't start inside, because it does start inside, but it moves outward. The way that worship expresses itself in this world is it makes it visible. It's easy to see. And here's the piece that many people trip over. Worship is also going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. Now, the way that this principle was lived out by God's people at this time was through specific acts. You can see it was going to be outward, and it was going to cost them something. They were going to have to share their food. They were going to have to open their homes to those without homes. They were going to have to help free people who were under oppression. That's what outward worship always looks like. That's what it always looks like. So, however, okay, there's that. For them specifically, that's what he says. But there are these underlying categories, again, generosity and hospitality, embedded in these things that are universal for all time, all people, everywhere. That includes us. Generosity and hospitality are here. There were specific things for Israel. There are specific things for us as well, because the rest of Scripture says we are to be generous and we're to be hospitable. So what does that look like? What does generosity look like for us? Well, earlier I said that we were going to get back to what generosity looks like and the purpose of it. Well, this is where we do that right here. See, when you give faithfully back to the Lord what he has handed you, what you're doing is what this passage is describing. You are loosening your grip on the things that he's given you. Right? That is what outward worship looks like. That is what worship costing you something looks like. And I believe that's what has happened here in this church over the last year. And that's why I'm so grateful and so thankful. And I can say that our leaves have continued to remain green, and we have fruit that is being produced. And I'm so thankful for that. But now, that same principle, worship moving outward in generosity, it also shows itself not in just monetary giving, it shows itself in another way. Now, a couple of years ago, we set the goal. We said over the next 3 years, we want to reach everyone within 1 mile radius of this school with the gospel. That's what we want to do. It's a big goal. So we got to work. We got busy. In February and March, we had a sermon series. Good to go. It was on evangelism. What is evangelism? Why is it important? How do we do it? We partnered with our North Campus. There was lots of training available. Our home groups went through training. This is the gospel. This is how to do it. Practice it with the guy sitting next to you. We did all those things. Then we went out and did those things that we were learning about. A lot of us went to the farmer's market more than once. And we went there with the express purpose of sharing the gospel with people. We had some great conversations. We had some tough conversations and everything in between. But that wasn't it. We also went out into this neighborhood more than once. This was one of my favorite things that we did, and some of you were there. We went door to door in this surrounding neighborhood to hand out invitations to a free event that we had here that most of you were here at, where we just invited the community. And there at the community, we made sure that anybody who wanted to hear the gospel had an opportunity to hear it at that event. Now, can I stand up here and say that we knocked on every door within a 1 mile radius and shared the gospel with everybody? I cannot. But this is what I do want to say. I think that goal is much too small. I don't think that that was the goal. The goal, honestly, was never to be able to have a map up on the screen where we have a circle and all the boxes, all the houses checked off. We go, that was done. Look at what we accomplished. The goal was much bigger. It was to change our hearts. It was to change our desires. It was to have a sense of ownership and responsibility about this neighborhood where God has placed us. And I'll tell you what, through going door to door, through the evangelism stuff, that certainly started a fire in my heart for this neighborhood, more than it was before. And I think it did for you guys as well, at least some of you. The reason I say that is because I look at this cross over here. I mean, look at that cross. Some of you may not even know what it is. We haven't talked about it in a couple weeks. Each one of those light bulbs represents a conversation that someone in this church has had with someone outside of this church. I counted them earlier. I think there's 64 bulbs there. That cross has already been filled up once. This is our second time through, which means there's been well over 100 gospel conversations that people in this church have had with people inside and outside of this neighborhood. That is incredible. And I know there's at least one person that comes to the church fairly regularly that is here as a result of us going out to the neighborhoods door to door. That is incredible. And guys, we're not done. I don't want to say like, yeah, all right, didn't we do good? No, we're not done. Let me tell you about something that's been created specifically for South Campus, okay? It's this here. There's these cards here. Now, you saw them a few weeks ago. Jesse introduced them very, very briefly. I wanted to save it for this moment here. These have been created specifically for South Campus. These don't exist anywhere else. And what they are, they have a QR code on here. When the person, you can give this to someone you're having a gospel conversation with. Simple, non-threatening, non-aggressive. They don't have to take it. They scan the QR code. It takes them to a web page, a beautiful web page, I might say, that's attractive, easy to use, that takes them through what's called the good person test. They click their answers, yes, no, I've done this. Anyways, it leads them through a series of questions, very brief, and then it gives them a simple explanation of the gospel at the end. But that's not it. Then it gives them the opportunity to reach out to me directly, to email me directly, or they can click on another link and it takes them directly here. It gives them a map directly to this place. So there's going to be some of these in the back later. I would ask you to take some, keep them in your pocket, because on the other side, it's Fellowship Bible Church South Campus, our address, and where we meet. So even if you're just having a conversation with someone, it's easy to hand them. You don't even have to bring up the QR code. They'll see it on their own. So take some, test it, see how it works. I think you'll be eager to give them to people because they're really, really well done. Okay, so that's the first category. The first category of genuine worship is generosity. And we've seen that, and we want to continue seeing that in this church. The second one is hospitality. Hospitality. What does God tell his people? Bring the homeless poor into your house. Now here, God is telling specifically to his people, the nation of Israel, to welcome people into your house that have nowhere to stay. Maybe he's calling you to do that as well. I don't know. But again, there's a principle underneath this. There's a principle that applies to everybody at all times, in all places, and it's this. Genuine worship opens your life to people on the outside. Genuine worship is willing to open your life to people on the outside. It doesn't just, invite them to a service. It pulls up a chair next to them and is willing to do life with them. And that's why we believe in the importance of home groups. This is why we believe in the importance of the men's dinner this Saturday, which you can sign up for in the back, by the way. That's why we had the pool party like last night, which you missed. It's too late to sign up for that one. That's why we have women's Bible studies where they gather around the scriptures, and we have potlucks. These are not programs. They're opportunities for you to open your lives to each other and express your worship to one another. And so if you're not yet in a home group, I do want to encourage you. This is kind of this is when we get ready for the fall season for our home groups. I do want to encourage you to consider joining one. And not because it's a box that you're going to check, but because we believe that this is what the Bible teaches, that this is one of the ways that God uses to grow his people, to sharpen his people as we rub together. So don't miss the opportunity to do that. Okay, now, if we do those things, if we do all those things, we continue to be generous and we continue to be hospitable, whatever that looks like for you, in authentic worship to God, what can we hope for? Why would we do these things? God being God and as great as he is, he always says, do these things because they're good for you. Oh, and by the way, there's a blessing on the other side of it too. Look with me at verse 8, what God promises his people. Then shall your light break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you. The glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. He says that your righteousness will go before you, which means that the life that you're living right now, the giving, the reaching out, the opening of your lives to one another, that will go ahead of you. It will lead the way, and it will guard you throughout your life. Not from every challenge, every tribulation, every trial, no, but it will guard you. Your righteousness will go before you. And not only that, if you've been here for any length of time, you know I like to talk about the tribe of Dan. And the reason, if you haven't, then this is for you, so pay attention. The reason I like to talk about the tribe of Dan is because when God's people were wandering through the wilderness, God had very specific instructions about how his tribes were to march. And the tribe of Dan was to be the last. The tribe of Dan was to be the rear guard. They were to make sure that no one attacked from behind. They were to make sure that no one who got left behind, nothing got left behind. Well, guys, I'm telling you, our mission as a church, right, our specific mission as a church has not changed. I believe this is what God has for South Campus, to take the position of the rear guard. If you haven't heard that message, on the back of your bulletin, there's a QR code. You can scan it. You can go to our YouTube page. You can scroll down a couple years. Taking the Rear Guard is the name. You can watch it. You can see what I'm talking about. But I believe that God has called us as a church to take the position that Dan took, the position of a rear guard, which means that we as a church are to slow our pace and make sure that no one who's struggling, no one with church baggage, no one with emotional issues, no one who wants to be among God's people gets left behind. That we make sure that they have a place, that they have a community, and if they leave, it's because they left, not because we chased them out. So that's just a little history. The new thing for us this morning, Isaiah expands on this in Isaiah 58. He adds to the picture. So it's not just us taking the rear guard for others. He says when God's people are walking in righteousness, when they're giving and they're gathering and they're opening their lives to one another, God himself takes the position of the rear guard. He watches the backs of those who are watching the backs of others. Isn't that great? That's what verse 8 says, which means that we can go forward and not worry about what's behind of us because God has our back. He is the rear guard of the rear guard. This morning, I want to say something to some of you this morning. This morning, I want to say something to some of you this morning. A little redundant. But I hope I've got your attention now. Some of you I know, you come here and kind of check the box. You've been coming here for a while. Maybe you're here most Sundays, and you're just kind of watching from the sidelines, just kind of not really getting involved. I want to tell you this morning that there are two versions of church. Two versions of church. One of them costs you about an hour and a half on a Sunday, and it returns to you about the same. That's it. That's about all you get. The other one is where you actually show up and you give something. The one where you actually show up beyond just Sunday. The one where you actually take ownership of the place where God has planted you and you begin to pour in to that place. Let me tell you something. The second one is much, much harder. But I believe personally, and I believe the scriptures teach, that is the place where the blessings come out. That is the place where God can work most easily in and through our lives. You want to see your faith grow? You want to see your love for God grow? Get involved in church more. Serve. Worship with all of your heart. Give. Be generous, not just here, but everywhere that you go. Really, when you think about it, it's like the difference between going to see a game and actually being in the game. Right? Now, you can go to a game and you can sit in the stands. I know we've got some athletes here. You can go to a game, you can get to sit in the stands, you can have yourself a good time, but you're not going to know what it's like to actually be on the field. You're not going to know what it's like to actually have the victory, help accomplish the victory, work as a team together until you put that jersey on and you walk through the gate. See, because worship isn't just some kind of belief system that we hold in our head. It's not just a belief system that we hold in our head. It's a life that you live. It's answering the call that God has on your life to give, to gather, to worship, to open your lives to everyone around you. And then we leave the results to him. And that's what Isaiah is describing here. And I hope you've picked up on that. There's some harsh words there, but I hope you picked up on the hopefulness of Isaiah 58 as well. That's what Isaiah is promising us. And honestly, this is what I want for each and every one of you. I want it for myself, and I want it for you. So, to sum everything up this morning, as we get ready to wrap it up, if you have not been giving regularly and generously, I'm talking about just regular tithes and offerings, I'm talking about sacrificial giving, and I'm not talking about the sacrificial giving always has to be here. It's not that. But if you have not, you're missing out on a blessing. I and others can tell you personally that there's something about entrusting to God your stuff and then watching him somehow make a way where there seems to be no way. It adds like weight to your faith. It adds weight to your confidence and to your trust and your love of him and appreciation of him. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you haven't been very involved in community here, I also want to encourage you, don't miss out on that blessing. Don't miss out on the blessing of rubbing shoulders with each other, being sharpened as a Christian, being challenged as a Christian, being blessed, not only being blessed, but being a blessing to others. So if you've been in the stands, if you've been on the sidelines, I'm telling you, don't wait to put the jersey on. Put the jersey on, get on the field. What are you waiting for? So this morning, I'm going to do something that's probably not a very good idea. Now I really got your attention. I'm going to overload you with material. Back there on the table back there, we have some stuff for you to grab, consider, look at on your way out. The first thing, we haven't talked about membership, church membership, in quite a while. But church membership is something that we take very seriously and we think is biblical, and there are lots of reasons. I have personal reasons. I have things I've prepared, things I've talked about, and if you're new here, you may have missed that. You may have no idea what I'm talking about, and you may be curious. Well, back there on the table, we have membership forms. I want to encourage you, don't just take one, please, but take it with the purpose of bringing it back so that we can talk, or just come to me and say, hey, can we talk about membership? Can we talk about why it's important? I don't understand. I would love to have that conversation. The other page that we have back there is a baptism page. You may be here and you may think, do they even do baptisms? Maybe the last time we had one, which was a couple months ago, you weren't here and you missed it. The answer is yes, we do. We do baptisms here. We do have a way. There's a sheet back there that gives you instructions, details, asks you to just share some bits and pieces about your life. Bring that back. I would love to talk to you about that as well. Then also we have home group signups, like I said. Home group signups. Now here's the thing. I was thinking about why are people afraid to sign these things sometimes? What would stop me? And I thought, you know what? The thing that would stop me is if there's a blank sheet there, these people are having a home group, and if I sign my name and it's just me and I don't show up, that's going to look real bad. But here's the thing I want you to know. Each one of those papers represents a home group that's already going. The old people aren't going to sign up on there, just the new people. So it's not like if you sign up and you miss a Sunday, they're going to be like crushed because you didn't show up. So there's home group signups as well. And one more thing. There's a bunch of, and I think there is, positions, volunteer position sheets back there as well. If God has stirred up something in your heart and you want to serve somewhere in the church, there's opportunities for you to put your name down back there. And if there's something you want to do that's not back there, let me know. And we definitely want to get you serving. We want to get you plugged in. We want to get you in community. And then the last thing, the card. These cards are going to be back there. There's only a couple hundred, so don't take 100. Take what you're going to use. Take 5, take 10. Keep them in your pocket. Don't leave them on your counter. Take them with you. And when you're having a conversation with someone about, oh, where do you go to church? Oh, this is where I go to church. Simple. You don't even have to mention the QR code. They'll find it on their own. So guys, this has been a great, great year. Lots to celebrate. I had the best week just thinking about the things that God has done here in Bemis for us and for South Campus. And I don't believe that God has brought us this far and blessed us this way to just have us fail. I believe he is for us and with us and will continue to guide us and direct us. So let's pray this morning and ask for God's help in this.